Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the intensely intricate surgical techniques used to repair cleft lips and palates. And we're not just looking at basic anatomy here. We're talking about the absolute highest level of reconstructive art and science, all distilled into a masterclass format. Right off the bat, we're introduced to the 2026 edition of Nuances of Cleft Lip and Palate Surgery. This is an incredibly detailed masterclass series coming out of the Christian Institute of Health Sciences and Research, or CIHSR, over in Nagaland, India. What really makes this masterclass so unique is the ongoing dialogue it captures. You get to follow the lead experts, Dr. Bona S. Lotha and Dr. Temsel Allinger, two brilliant surgeons in the Department of Aesthetic and Plastic Surgery, as they constantly debate, refine, and perfect these incredibly complex reconstructive techniques. But, before we get into the heavy clinical stuff, we really have to ground ourselves in the profound humanity underlying this whole field. The late Dr. John B. Mulligan, who was a lifetime mentor to both of these surgeons, famously advised, "Never lose your sense of wonder." It's just a beautiful reminder that behind every single millimeter of clinical precision, there's a life-changing impact for a child. So here's our roadmap for today's anatomical journey. We'll start with Mulligan's overarching legacy, move to the macrofacial muscles, map out the palate architecture, zoom into the precision required for bilateral clefts, and finish up with the micro measurements of the lip itself. Let's get into it. Part 1. Mulligan's Legacy, the absolute foundation of modern repair. The highly advanced techniques taught in this 2026 masterclass didn't just appear out of nowhere. They're built squarely on the revolutionary principles established in John Mulligan's landmark 1985 paper on bilateral cleft lip reconstruction. That specific paper completely shifted the paradigm of how surgeons approach the symmetry and natural geometry of the face. His legacy is quite literally the bedrock this CIHSR Center is built upon. Moving on to Part 2, Unveiling Facial Musculature. Taking a macro view, let's look at the literal canvas these surgeons are working on. You honestly cannot understand cleft surgery without getting a handle on the orbicularis oris muscle. This isn't just about repairing skin. The orbicularis oris is this incredibly complex sphincter muscle circling the mouth, and it is absolutely critical for speech, eating, and every little subtle facial expression we make. In a cleft lip, this muscle is severely disrupted, so it has to be meticulously reconstructed to restore both form and function. Just look at this AI-generated 3D imagery from the textbook. It perfectly highlights that complex, interwoven muscle structure. The sheer density of the musculature around the mouth and jaw shown here is wild. It visually communicates the monumental task these surgeons face. They aren't just stitching tissue together. They are essentially reweaving a functional biological net. All right, Part 3, Mapping the Cleft Palate, our meso view. Let's see how this all builds into the structural architecture of the mouth. Take a look at this foundational surgical sketch. This geometric mapping is exactly what helps surgeons strategize the mechanics of the closure. And Dr. Lotha and Dr. Allinger's dialogue keeps coming back to this one crucial point. Repairing the palate is not just about pulling tissue together to close a hole. Not at all. It's a massive three-dimensional architectural challenge. The surgeon has to align that alveolar arch perfectly to make sure there's proper dental development and structural integrity in the upper jaw later in life. Part 4, Precision in Bilateral Clefts. Now we're stepping into the micro view, zooming in on the most delicate piece of the puzzle. This surgical blueprint brilliantly shows the landscape of a bilateral cleft. So bilateral means the lip is split on both sides, leaving a central segment completely isolated. When a surgeon looks at a patient in the OR, this sketch is exactly the mental blueprint they're visualizing. Sitting right at the dead center of this blueprint is something called the prolabium. The prolabium is that isolated central segment of the upper lip, hanging between the two clefts. Philtrum, that little vertical groove right in the middle of your upper lip. In their dialogue, the surgeons heavily emphasize how every single one of these anatomical landmarks needs to be meticulously mapped out. You've got the soft triangle zone near the top, the myrtiformis zone at the lateral bases, the central curva concave, and of course, the prolabium. Every single zone has to be accounted for and perfectly manipulated to create a natural-looking human lip. Finally, Part 5, the prolabium and proportions, where millimeters truly matter. To really grasp the genius of this masterclass, you have to remember the mind-boggling scale here.
They aren't operating on adults. This is a tiny neonatal canvas. Infants pulling this off requires absolute anthropometric precision, using specialized surgical calipers. There is literally zero room for guesswork.
At the center of the sketch, right below the curvocconcave, you actually see the caliper markers written out. A 4.7 outlining the bottom width of the prolabium, and a 3 marking a point higher up. This just goes to show that a fraction of a single millimeter can dramatically alter the success, the symmetry, and the overall aesthetic outcome of the entire reconstruction. So your main takeaways from this explainer should be this clear 4-step approach to surgical mastery. First, honoring the history and legacy of pioneers like Dr. Mulliken. Second, functionally reconstructing the orbicularis oris muscle. Third, 3-dimensionally mapping the palate's architecture. And fourth, measuring the prolabium with absolute, caliber-driven precision on a neonatal scale. As we marvel at the immense precision outlined in this 2026 Masterclass, by single millimeter can alter a child's smile, function, and life forever, how are the advanced tools of tomorrow going to push this life-changing precision even further? Thanks for exploring this remarkable subject with me. See you next time.